Alright, let's talk about Nepal. Mount Everest. Serene temples. Maybe some amazing momos. It's the rooftop of the world. A place of spiritual journeys and epic treks. But just last week this Himalayan nation wasn't peaceful at all. It was the epicenter of a political earthquake. A massive youth-led protest movement that shook the country. Starting around the first week of September 2025, the streets of Kathmandu, once tourism hubs and centers of daily life, transformed into a battlefield of dissent, anger, a desperate call for change. This wasn't your typical political protest led by seasoned activists or opposition parties. No, this was the Gen Z protest, teenagers, young adults, people aged 13 to 28 who traded their TikTok scrolling for street-level organizing. So, what was the trigger? What was the one move that turned years of quiet resentment into a full-blown national crisis? It all started on September 4, 2025. On that day, the Nepalese government decided to drop a bombshell. It ordered a shutdown of 26 major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp, Reddit. The official reason given was that these companies had failed to register under new government regulations. But nobody was buying that. The timing was just way too suspicious. Just before the ban, a viral movement had exploded across Nepali social media. It was called the Nepo Kids movement. It was gaining serious traction. Borrowing the term Nepo baby from Hollywood discourse, young Nepalists were using hashtags like #NepoKids, #politicians, Nepo baby Nepal to expose the lavish lifestyles of the children and relatives of powerful political leaders. The message was clear. They were accusing the political elite of using taxpayer money to fund their families' extravagant lives while ordinary citizens struggled. The social media ban and the #NepoKids movement were the sparks, but the fire had been building for a long time. The protests were fueled by a deep well of public anger over issues that have plagued Nepal for decades. At the top of that list is rampant, systemic corruption. For years, Nepal's government officials and politicians have faced accusations of widespread graft and a complete lack of transparency in how public money is spent. This isn't just a perception. It's a lived reality for ordinary Nepalists, who see public services crumble while the politically connected seem to thrive without any accountability. This culture of corruption is made even more infuriating by the dire economic situation facing the country's youth. The statistics paint a grim picture. Nepal's per capita annual income is around $1,400, the lowest in all of South Asia, and its poverty rate has remained stubbornly high. For young people, the future looks particularly bleak. The unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24 was a staggering 20.8% in 2024. This means that 1 in 5 young Nepalese who are actively looking for a job can't find one. This lack of opportunity creates hopelessness and forces many to seek work abroad, leading to a massive brain drain. What began as a digital outcry swiftly morphed into a physical confrontation with a scale and intensity that honestly shocked the nation. The government's attempt to silence the youth backfired spectacularly, driving tens of thousands of them into the streets of Kathmandu and other cities across Nepal. These were not peaceful, orderly marches. The raw anger of the protesters met with an aggressive response from security forces, creating a volatile and dangerous situation. The violence reached a terrifying peak on September 9, 2025. In an act of extreme rage, a group of protesters managed to set the parliament building on fire, a symbolic attack on the very institution they felt had betrayed them. Protesters also attempted to storm Tribhuvan International Airport, the country's main aviation gateway, forcing the Nepal army to intervene and take control of the premises. In another shocking incident, the house of former Prime Minister Jalanath Kanal was set ablaze by an angry mob, leading to the tragic death of his wife, who was reportedly inside at the time. By September 13th, when the protests had largely subsided, official reports confirmed that at least 51 people had been killed nationwide. This number included 21 protesters, 9 prisoners, 3 police officers, and 18 other individuals. Furthermore, more than 1,300 people were injured, overwhelming hospitals and medical facilities. The government's violent crackdown was a fatal miscalculation. Instead of intimidating protesters into submission, the crackdown failed. The deaths of young Nepalese at the hands of security forces became a point of no return. The protests began with demands for digital freedom and an end to corruption. They now had a new focus: justice for the fallen, and the complete removal of the government responsible. the movement transformed from protest into a full-blown revolution. Faced with unrelenting public pressure, the government began to crumble from within. The first cracks appeared as several ministers resigned rather than defend state-sanctioned violence. Their departures showed confidence in the Prime Minister's leadership was collapsing. These resignations were more than political maneuvering. They were an admission of failure. The climax came on Tuesday, September 10, 2025. With the country paralyzed and his cabinet in disarray, Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Sharma Oli stepped down. His resignation was the biggest victory for Gen Z protesters. They toppled the head of government through sheer will, a stunning achievement for a leaderless movement born online weeks earlier. But demands went beyond one man's resignation. They called for a complete overhaul, immediate and unconditional lifting of the social media ban, an independent commission to investigate and prosecute corruption, concrete economic reforms to create jobs and opportunities for young people, accountability for the violence, bring the security personnel responsible to justice. The Prime Minister's departure was just the beginning. In the end, the Gen Z protests of September 2025 were more than just a fleeting moment of anger. They were a profound turning point for Nepal. For the first time in decades, the nation's youth demonstrated that they are not a silent, passive generation, but a formidable political force capable of demanding and achieving radical change. This movement proved that in the digital age, a hashtag can be as mighty as a political party, and a viral social media campaign can topple a government. It was a brutal, costly, but ultimately successful fight to hold power accountable, and its impact will be felt for years to come. These protests are incredibly important because they shattered the illusion of stability that had masked deep-seated problems. The uprising forced the entire country to confront the ugly reality of corruption, nepotism, economic inequality that the political elite had long ignored. It sent a clear message to any future leader. The old ways of doing business are no longer acceptable. For the youth of Nepal, this was a moment of empowerment and a tragic coming of age. They learned the hard way about the price of freedom and the power of collective action. They changed the course of their nation's history.